I'm getting down to the final details. Made myself a list here of all the things I need to do still. I just finished polishing and installing the truss rod cover. It matches the walnut peghead veneer pretty nicely. It is also walnut. Right now what I'm doing is polishing along the edges of the fretboard. That's always a tough place to get to be as smooth and shiny as the rest of the guitar top. I've got this handy handheld Fordham buffing system, and if I just go along very carefully after sanding a lot, up to 2000 grit I sanded, and now I just finish it off this way and it winds up looking good. You don't want to just go back and forth in a straight line with this, because the lacquer does get quite hot and it would be very easy to burn a track into the lacquer or even burn it off entirely. So I kind of wiggle it back and forth as I move up and down, and it keeps any particular place from getting too hot. The tape is there. I don't want to get buffing compound on the fretboard, and more importantly, I don't want to get the ebony resins on my buffing wheel, because once they go on, it's pretty hard to take them off. And I keep a special wheel just for buffing the fretboard, and as you can see, it is quite black with ebony. So I'll use this in a few minutes and buff the entire fretboard, make it nice and shiny. Next I'm going to polish up the nut and sand it down a little bit. Right now the slots are way too deep. Really only about half the diameter of the string needs to fit down into a slot. If you have the slots too deep, the strings are more likely to hang up and catch when you're trying to tune the guitar. So I'm going to sand off the top and round the edges. They're all squared right now, so I'll get that looking better and then buff it to a nice shine. I've got it sanded up to 320 grit. It's looking nice and shiny already, but I'm going to just give it a quick hit on the fine buffing wheel, and that'll polish it up quite nicely. Probably won't show, but it's nice and shiny now. Next I'll polish up the saddle. It's a little bit longer than the slot in the bridge, so I'll have to shorten it some, but also I noticed when I had the guitar strung up that the B string and the E string were a little bit sharp, so I can offset that or compensate for it by reshaping the crown of the saddle. I've marked a pencil line pretty much where the strings currently come up from the holes in the bridge and then break over the saddle, so that's actually their stopping point. And what I'm going to do with a fine file, a fine flat file, is set back the stop point for the B string and the bass E string. So I will file the front edge and cause the stop point for those two strings to break a little farther back on the saddle than they have been. And that will help with the intonation of those two strings. The way I check the intonation is by playing a fretted note at the 12th fret and a harmonic at the 12th fret. And what I was hearing with these two strings was that the fretted note was slightly sharper than the harmonic. And I think I said in an earlier video, this is the nice part about making a wide saddle, is you're given more of an opportunity to make fine adjustments on individual strings. So now you can see, well, you probably can't, I can see that the stop point for the B string has moved back, I don't know, 20 thousandths of an inch, and the stop point for the E string is getting close to the back edge of the saddle. And that's about, my experience tells me that that's about all I needed to do with that. So now I'm going to just trim this so that the saddle is not hanging off of the bass side of the bridge slot. And just like I did with the nut, I'll sand it to a pretty nice smooth grit and then polish it on the wheel. Just getting the last few traces of rubbing compound or lacquer overspray off of the fretboard. And then I'll give it a polish to give the ebony a nice shine. So that is pretty much the end of this project. I'm going to install a K&K pickup on the soundboard, but other than that, it's done. And once I put that pickup in, I'll string it up and send it on its merry way. Here's the output jack for the K&K pickup. So I've got my label installed, and now I'm down to just about the last thing before restringing it, which is to put the pickguard on. I cut out a clear plastic pickguard. It'll be clear once the paper backing comes off of it, and that's gonna butt right up against the edges of the sound hole. The glue on these Mylar pickguards is extremely tenacious. As soon as it touches something, it is stuck. Unless you take steps to avoid that happening. And the best step I know of is to put some soapy water on the surface of the guitar. Put a paper towel inside in case any of the soapy water drips in. but I can then, once I get the paper backing off, I can actually move the pickguard around a little bit on the top of the guitar to put it exactly where I want it to be. I'm going to put a little more water right on the pickguard itself, and now I can put it in position and maneuver it as I need to. And that's about where I want it. So now I'll lay it down, and as I push down on it, the water squeezes out the edges, and the air bubbles can get worked out just by working from the center outward. There's a little bit of water that remains under the pickguard for a while, but after a day or two it seems to work its way to the edges, and then it dries up if I don't see it to dab it with a paper towel. But that's it for the pickguard, and now I can put the strings back on, and I think that'll pretty much do it for this project. Thank you for watching. Here's one final look. Pretty happy with how it turned out.